Cuentos del Abuelito. Hey guys, welcome back to another video. On this occasion, I'll be narrating 3 scary stories that happened around tooth fairies. If you like the stories, please make sure to like, share, and comment. And with all that being said, let's get to it. The truth about the tooth fairy. Have you ever heard that old story about the tooth fairy? Of course you've heard of it. I really do think so. We all have heard it, right? A nice, gentle, and small fairy that leaves coins to children in exchange for their baby teeth. I really believe that our parents had a great time telling us all that bedtime story. For them, it's such a proud moment, and there is nothing like the illusion on the faces of their children every time they discover a shiny coin under their pillow. I can imagine what you're thinking right now. Of course, that is nothing more than an innocent story. Perhaps you saw your dad or your mommy coming into your room in the middle of the night, and then you felt a gentle hand slide the expected coin under your pillow. I would like to say that I also have such a beautiful memory, but the truth is, what I saw that one time when I was just 7 years old will haunt me for the rest of my life. And that is something I would never wish upon anyone. You see, I remember that night with total clarity. Despite the amount of time that has passed, one of my front teeth had fallen out, and I was extremely excited and prideful about it. It meant that I was going to receive a shiny coin that I could then use to spend on chocolate bars and candy. But not only that, it also meant that I was growing up and would have strong and perfect teeth. That night, we ate fried chicken with peas and mashed potatoes. One of my favorite meals. See, I told you I remember that night very well. It really is as if it just happened yesterday. I remember putting on my Batman superhero pajamas and jumping into my bed before my mom came over to say goodnight. "Good night, son. Sleep tight," she told me as she tucked me into bed. "Go to sleep, and you will see how tomorrow you'll find something very special under your pillow." "Good night, Mom." I fell asleep, trusting her words to be true. It must have been past midnight when I woke up, alerted by strange noises. It was like the noise of an animal outside my house going through the garbage in search of something to eat, ripping open plastic bags with very, very sharp teeth. I blinked a few times so that my vision could clear up and get used to the darkness. The sound had grown more intense. I was facing the wall when I made the worst mistake of my life. I sat up against my bed and looked slightly to my right, and that's when I saw her. A hideous old woman kneeling at the side of my bed, staring at me with empty eye sockets. She had a mop of dirty gray hair that half covered her wrinkled, loose-skinned face. But the most horrible thing, the most frightening thing of all, was her mouth. A gaping hole that took up half her face, filled with rows and rows of teeth of various sizes. I felt sick and wanted to vomit. I felt extreme terror at that moment. The creature hissed something, then retracted her hand with long, sharp nails from under my pillow. At that moment, I had found out what she wanted. She exists, but it is nothing as friendly and beautiful as they say. Matilda Dixon, sometimes known by her nickname, the Tooth Fairy. Over 150 years ago, in the town of Darkness Falls, a lonely and widowed woman named Matilda Dixon is adored by the town's children. Whenever one of them lost a tooth, they would bring it to her in exchange for a gold coin, earning her the nickname the Tooth Fairy. One night a fire broke out in her house on Lighthouse Point, leaving her face disfigured and with sensitivity to light. To counter this, Matilda can only go out at night and always wore a porcelain mask to cover her face. Though the children adore the Tooth Fairy, the grown-ups were very suspicious. One day their suspicions were confirmed when two children went missing. In their acts of justice, they hanged Matilda, removing her mask and exposing her scarred face to the light. Out of sadness and betrayal, Matilda, with her dying breath, swore vengeance and enacted her curse on Darkness Falls, stating, "What I took before in kindness, I will take forever in revenge." However, the missing children were found unharmed, so the town buried Matilda along with their dirty secrets. Since then, the story of Matilda the Tooth Fairy became a legend. Her dark spirit is said to visit the home of the children of Darkness Falls on the night they lose their last baby tooth. If anyone sees her when she visits, they are marked for her vengeance. However, Matilda has the same weakness from when she was alive: sensitivity to light, as she can only move freely in dark and shadowy areas. The legend of the Tooth Fairy perhaps is a little different from what we have been told when we were children. That beautiful fable in which we put our recently fallen teeth under the pillow and magically the next day we find money. That legend may not be entirely accurate. At least, that's not what my grandmother told me when I was a child. The day my grandmother decided to tell me this event, she took me outside to the backyard, away from everyone else. She was already very old, and we all knew that she was going to die very soon, so I thought that maybe this was a type of confession. This was just a few months ago. Unfortunately, she has already passed. This was a type of confession. My grandma told me that I was too young to remember this. Strange things were happening in our town. As soon as a child began to lose her teeth, and if the parents weren't careful, she said that the child also disappeared without a trace. And in other cases, something even more horrifying was happening. Something that has made my blood run cold since she told me this. And I think I'll never be able to get over it. It turns out that a street vendor of all kinds of sweets, cotton candy and chocolates, bubblegum, and various goods of all types of colors had come to town and walked to the only elementary school we had in town and sold her goods to most of the kids during and after school. No one knew where that lady had come from. Her face was difficult to see. She used a huge hat that covered most of her face and usually tilted her face down when kids got close to her, and thus managed to hide most of her face. The parents, after all, were very busy with their life and work. My grandma explained that most parents had no time to care and meet this old lady, or to pay attention to the fact that their children all gathered every afternoon around the old vendor after school to purchase her candy. So much was the amount of sweets the children ate that they didn't want to have dinner. My grandmother told me that even I, through my little sister, had tried those sweets. According to the children, the old woman did not speak much. With just a whisper, she offered them her sweets. Time passed. This went on for some time, and after a couple of weeks, the children began to get sick. Their bodies were filled with warts and pimples, high fever and vomiting. My grandmother told me that at this point, she was beginning to be concerned, and something very shocking occurred. All of the children who had tried the old lady's candy began to lose their teeth, but not one as it would normally be, but all of them, teeth and molars. The creepy thing was that there were visible worms in the children's gums after losing their teeth. Horrible little worms of different colors, just like the candies that the mysterious old lady sold. Those worms were literally eating the gums of all the children. My grandmother said that night in my house, my little sister woke up screaming, with her pillow full of blood due to the loss of her teeth. She cried desperately. My grandmother also said she had seen a woman walk into my sister's room, and that woman also walked towards my room. My grandmother, along with my parents, ran to my side, and she told me with tears in her elderly eyes that she could never forget what she saw. There was a very strange woman with long limbs, snake-like eyes, and bony hands holding my head, and with a long tongue was sucking the blood from my gums. She had rows and rows of sharp teeth, and her face, now visible, was horrendous. That creature seemed to have a sack full of teeth, apparently the teeth she collected from all her victims. And there she was, throwing mine next to the teeth of other children. That creature set me free as soon as my grandmother and my parents tried to attack her. But although they managed to save me, that night many children disappeared, including my little sister, who had been left alone in her room. Nobody knows what that thing was or where it came from, but it definitely had nothing to do with the tooth fairy that I have always heard of. My grandmother died shortly after revealing to me what had happened. I finally understood why from a very young age I had to use dentures instead of having normal teeth just like everyone. I know now that it wasn't due to an accident as my parents told me. Now, I'm an adult, I have my own family, and I even have a child who will soon lose his first tooth. He has already been told about the tooth fairy by his mother, and he is extremely excited to leave his tooth under his pillow and receive money to purchase his favorite Batman, Superman, and Flash superheroes. But I know the truth, and I tremble with terror every time my wife brings colored candies to our little one. I know what you're thinking. I should tell them. But will they believe me? Would I seem insane? Maybe one day, but for now, I'll stay up all night until I know for sure my wife is the one retrieving the tooth and leaving money under our son's pillow. And now I'll leave you with Grandpa's advice. If you know of a loved one who is losing a tooth soon, make sure to leave a shiny coin under their pillow. Great memories are formed with action, and memories are for a lifetime. It's better they receive something from you than from someone else.